Hi, I'm Lucca.
Hi, I'm Owen.
And I'm Ethan, and we're from the Santa Barbara Middle School Teen Press. Today we're here with...
Hello, I'm Nick.
Reviewing your website, we saw that you're an awesome traveler. In 2016, you went on an 11,000-mile cross-country motorcycle trip. What inspired you to do it, and what were some of the most memorable experiences you had?
Well, I think it all started when I was probably 3 years old. My dad said that when I turned 20 and he turned 50, we would both get motorcycles. Turned out I got mine and he didn't get his. And so I took the trip on my own. I was graduating from college and moving from Tacoma, Washington to Miami, Florida. So I figured I would take the long way.
Thank you.
We also saw that you spent some time in Nepal with Buddhist monks. When was that, and what made the most impression on you from that experience?
Well, that was in 2013. It was my first teaching experience, and really where I found a passion for working with young people. I think the biggest takeaway I had from working there was a bit more abstract. It was a mindset, really. It's where I really learned meditation and the value of it in my life.
Thank you.
You also said that you worked with Christian missionaries in the Philippines. What did you accomplish there, and what inspired you to do that?
Well, I was a bit of a tour guide. I had this random connection to this group in the Philippines. It was actually my high school friend's mom's cheerleading friend from when she was in high school. Crazy connection. And they offered to host me down there if I would work for them. And so I spent the summer guiding groups of teenagers, groups of adults, working with the indigenous Ati people there, constructing a school.
Are there any takeaways that you had from that experience?
There were quite a few takeaways. I really started doing a bit more reflecting on my personal spiritual beliefs, and I really had a lot of learning curves in terms of traveling. I emailed the people that I was coming, but they never emailed back on where to meet. So I ended up getting to the country and had no idea where anybody was. So I spent about 3 days hitchhiking, traveling on buses and boats, trying to find out where I was supposed to even go. And eventually I got there.
That's interesting. Thank you.
You've hiked 3,500 plus miles in the last 3 years on several major trails, most recently completing the Sierra High Route. What drove you to take on these challenges? What were some interesting events that took place?
Kind of going off the last question as well, when I was doing that, reflecting on my spirituality, I really found that nature was really my place of worship. So I would take on these trails with kind of these big miles and big elevation gains and difficult terrain as a way to become closer to myself and kind of my higher power. And it was a really, really fun way to do so. And I got to see a lot of beautiful things. I think probably the biggest takeaway is movement as a meditation. Walking step after step, rhythmically for days on end, for hundreds and thousands of miles, really lets you tune into something bigger than yourself.
Thank you.
Hey, could you describe some challenges and rewards of working on a Gaia farm with your family?
Oh yeah, so I moved to Santa Barbara in April to start working on the farm with my family, and it's quite an experience. People say don't mix family and business. I don't think I heard that lesson. So we've been all learning how to work together, share our passions, support each other in our weaknesses. But really, I think the biggest takeaway is that there's no dilemma big enough, there's no problem big enough, there's nothing more important than our family. So whatever happens on the farm, whether we lose a dozen chickens and we can't find where they are, or we're missing one of our dogs, or we're at each other's throats because somebody needs to take out the trash and nobody wants to. The most important thing is our family.
Well, thank you.
Is it fair to say that you use travel as a means to self-discovery and for you and your mentees? Can you tell us a little bit about your mentoring program?
Absolutely. I think those are two pretty big questions. I would say I definitely use travel as a means of self-discovery, but it's not really about going anywhere specific. It's about coming into the traveling mindset that you're willing to accept the unknown and the challenges that are to come, even though you don't know what they are. In that process of acceptance, I find that I've been able to solve a lot of questions that I've had about myself and where my values and principles lie. In terms of my mentorship program, one of the biggest takeaways I've gained from just being outside in general is that nature has a lot to offer. And a lot of the questions that we have about values like courage or responsibility or motivation, you can just look to nature, and there's a perfectly clear example of how you can understand those principles.
Thank you.
This is your first year teaching at SPMS. How is it going for you, and what do you hope to accomplish?
It's going great. Yeah, everybody's super welcoming and inviting. Being new to Santa Barbara, I've been in search of a community that I feel accepted in and that I want to contribute to. And I hope I'm not speaking too early, but I think SBMS might be that community. What do I hope to accomplish? Nothing really. Just want to be here and hang out with y'all and get to know y'all. And I hope to learn.
What led you to think this is your community?
I think it's a mutual interest in a shared interest in learning from our ancestors. I think it's a shared interest in pursuing creativity, sometimes above academics. A shared interest in the outdoors and the power it has to mold young people and allow them to pursue their own path to self-discovery. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking some time to let us interview you and answering our questions.
Thank you for asking some really great questions.
Thank you.